Brian Patterson.
The Brian Patterson.
As far as I'm concerned, he's the only one that matters here, so we can get started now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, wait, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about how we're preparing for the changing market.
Okay, so...
Well, not changing anymore. It's a changed market.
Yeah, market's shifting, right? Or has shifted. It's a little bit different now. So how we're looking at investment properties, I don't necessarily think that we're making a huge adjustment. I think it really more enforces what we've already been doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we already bought conservatively to begin with, where, one of the running jokes all of us have is the appreciation ARV. We never paid attention to appreciation ARV.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, anything we're buying, I have to assume will never grow in value. So it has to have equity immediately. And again, reinforcing stuff we were already doing. Just buying well, making money on the buy, not making money on the market saving us. So doing that has already... Now, we talked about that, I think, in the first one of these we did, where the market carried us and saved us on several deals, and we cannot buy thinking the market's going to save us or pick up slack where we screw up. So making money on the buy.
Yeah, and I think that bringing perspective into the conversation is really important, because nothing about the market has been normal up until now, right? I mean, you basically had a free 30-year fixed loan, right?
Yeah.
You had crazy, stupid money out in the market. And inventory was at a 2-week or 3-week level, which again, just not
if that,
yeah. Which a normal market, just to put that in perspective, is probably 6 months of inventory, right?
Yeah.
When you're looking at a balanced market,
right? That could be a little in the high end, but yeah, that'd be more balanced. But so one thing that I think that we've been doing differently the last couple weeks at least, or I guess when this all started, is we generally weren't buying stuff that was listed. I mean, obviously we look at the MLS on a regular basis, but something gets listed, it's going to get offers, and that's just the way it's been for the last couple of years. But what I started looking at immediately is, we already started to see people panic about rates changing. We saw sellers panicking. We see agents panicking. And I think it was a Puget Sound Business Journal article, I think it's where it was, that said that investor purchases are already down, I want to say it was 14% from the last year this time. So even the investors were kind of sitting on the sidelines and panicking. And for me, I kind of saw that as an opportunity, albeit probably a short window, where we can take advantage of these people panicking and go make offers on stuff that's listed. Not only that, just lowball these listed places. And sure enough, we've got 2 properties already ever since the rates dropped of places that likely would have sold for a lot more given the circumstances were different, or even just 3 months ago. If these properties were listed at that time, they would have most certainly sold for a lot more than what we were able to get it for. Now, I take a look at these listings as I look at it differently. I want to make it clear that I do take advantage of real estate brokers on the other end, right? So if I'm working as a buyer or seller, rather than if I'm working with the owner directly, that I always want to try and make it a win-win scenario for everyone. But when someone has representation and it's listed, then it becomes a situation where I want to win. I don't care if it's a win-win anymore.
Yeah.
And you can look at that, however you like. But these last couple offers we made and properties we bought that were listed, it definitely came out in our favor. And I pushed and maybe even bullied the agent a little bit. So again, taking advantage of what I see as people panicking for no reason. And I don't think it'll last long. I think this morning already rates kind of are starting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already hearing some whispers out there that rates might be rebounding again. I mean, take that for what it's worth, I guess. But I think that we've been, to a certain extent, ourselves included, we've been spoiled, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we've been conditioned to think that what has happened up until this point is normal. But selling a house within the first weekend with multiple offers, that's not a normal thing. when you're comping out properties, looking at the last thing that sold, adding another 10% and then selling for another 100 more, that's not a normal thing. So when some of these listings are going now 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that's where the panic is settling in, right? Because we've been conditioned to think that that's a normal thing, and when it doesn't happen, then everyone starts freaking out. But you know, someone like yourself who's been in the industry for a long time, you know, especially that historically that's not a normal thing in our industry. 30 days on market, that's not an unusual thing. And so that's kind of the panic that you know, we're taking advantage right now, because when you're really looking at the industry as a whole, I mean, you could look at like CoreLogic, Ivy Zelman, I don't know, Freddie Mac, pretty much all of these places that are running these analytics. I mean, they're still all projecting that the median price is still in an upward trajectory, right? We're not in crash territory. We're not even in correction territory, right?
Right.
It's just that now we're getting back to what normal is supposed to feel like, and everyone has just forgotten that.
It's still very much a seller market. So I remember during the last peak, listings, we weren't really getting a lot of multiple offers situations. It would just sell within about a month. And that was normal. That was what we were dealing with during I want to say it was like 2006, 2007. You know, you weren't getting 15 offers on a property, right? You'd get one. And if you got two, then, you know, you're like, oh, what do I even do with this, right? So the 15 plus offers, the 10 plus offers, it's still happening now. But what people are doing, and you already touched on this, agents are going to go look at their comps and look at what's sold and take that price, that's what they listed at, as opposed to that house listed $100,000 less than they sold for. But they got those offers because of the price they listed at, as opposed to the price that it sold at. So when we see all these price reductions, it's more something where they're listing at that top of the market price that's sold. They're not looking at what it actually listed for in order to generate all that offer. So, you know, something that we're doing on our own listings is we are listing it lower, right? We already did that, or I already did that. I wanted to list the last house we sold for $1 just to see what would happen, but we decided against it. But we're listing stuff where we think it's going to generate activity. We're trying to undercut competition, and it's just like anything else. You know, it could be real estate, it could be a store you own, it could be anything. Our goal is to try and undercut everyone else, right? Make our house or our listing more attractive, and we're just going to continue doing that the same way.
Get buyers emotional, right?
Right, get buyers emotional, and get sellers emotional too. That's what we're doing right now in the last couple of weeks. That's different than the last couple of years. Going and being, for me personally, I'm kind of giving out secrets here, but I'm being as demoralizing as possible when I'm making these offers on listed property. Just for an example, I put an offer in yesterday for $25,000 on a property that's listed for $150,000, simply because I know that house right there has a lot of problems. They're not getting a lot of offers, and they've been sitting. And I happen to buy the house next door, so you know, just throwing something that's just ridiculously low, right? They're gonna probably ignore it, and not even counter me. But I'm just gonna chip away a little bit, little by little. Over the next week or so, just because I know it's going to sit, and I know people aren't going to want it because of some of the issues it has. But if I can buy this thing for $50,000 or $60,000, which is reasonable, then we should be able to make money on it. So, but that's really in a nutshell what we're doing. Just pushing and seeing what we can get away with right now with other agents, kind of the same way I did when the seller's market kind of took off. I was pushing at that time, but on the other end, I was the seller at that point. You know, telling people no, telling people get rid of this contingency, telling people, yeah, I know I listed this price, but I want $50,000 more because I have all these offers. And, you know, stuff that's commonplace now, but it wasn't commonplace when this started. And, you know, kind of testing boundaries. So what we're doing is constantly testing boundaries, right? Whether it's on one side or the other.
And it's funny because, you know, agents especially, we've been so spoiled for so long now that a lot of agents have forgotten agents have forgotten how to handle inspection clauses, for example, or how to handle contingencies.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we're taking advantage of now, right?
Yeah. You're right. I mean, it's just newer agents especially might not even have ever used an inspection contingency at this point or even seen one. So
Yeah.
the fact that we have it, you don't need to feel bad or feel guilty for using the contingencies you have. That's what they're for. Right?
Yeah, and leveraging that and using those as ways to renegotiate the terms later.
Right.
I think the transaction that you just wrapped up is a good example of that, where you sent your inspection request or response, and that agent thought that they could unilaterally cancel the deal because they didn't like something that was on the response, when in reality, the buyer still has the final say.
Right.
And I'm also finding that buyer's agents who are getting inspection clauses, they feel guilty about leveraging those clauses, like you said, and there's nothing to feel guilty about, and you've got to leverage it to its max, especially when you're representing a client.
Right. When you are a buyer's agent, your fiduciary responsibility is to that buyer. And if that means you can knock $20 or $30 or $50,000 off of the price by properly using your inspection contingency, then you should be doing it. There's nothing owed to that other side when you're representing your buyer, right? And again, if you can do something like reduce the price, then you should be. And that goes the other way, too. I said the same thing to listing agents, over the last couple of years. If you can just say no to this request, you don't have to feel bad about it, right? This house is probably going to sell. You're probably going to get what you want. But here we are now on the flip side of that. Start using your contingencies. Start taking advantage of these things that you can. Look carefully at the title report, for example. That's something a lot of us have been glossing over for the last couple of years. But this last property I purchased, there happened to be a code violation that was not recorded that I just kind of found by accident. And once I saw it, I made sure title was aware of it. And now they have a clouded title. So there's not really a lot of chance or choice that they have other than reducing the price, because even hard money lenders don't want to lend on something with code violations on title. So the fact that we could even close on it at all, they should have been happy about it. I mean, they weren't happy about reducing the price, but they did.
Yeah.
So that's all these little things. Again, it's always back to the basics, right?
Sure.
We check the title report. We look at the inspection. We do all these things. All this basic stuff is what we're supposed to be doing as investors and as agents. It's just that's our job to do these things. It's again, we've just been spoiled for so long at this point that a lot of us kind of forget about the basics. But the basics are what going to keep us going, through whatever market we're in.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely correct. Maybe we could touch on a little bit of a bonus topic too. Is I think you just barely touched on it at the beginning, and I don't think that anyone would have noticed. But we're licensed people. The situation that we're talking about is when we're negotiating with other licensed people, right? So we're negotiating with sellers that are being represented by a listing agent. So we're talking to the listing agent directly. Does the conversation change when you're working with a seller directly?
Yes, it does. And right, I did touch on this. When I'm working directly with the homeowner or a seller, again, I want a win-win scenario for everybody. And with things pop up on these deals too, but we talk about it, we go over it together, and we find a way to make it work for everyone. But again, when they are represented by somebody, me personally, I enjoy confrontation with real estate brokers, and for better or for worse, right? And the one issue is a lot of brokers do not want any confrontation at all. And, you can tell when you're working with them if they're a little bit afraid of the confrontation. And when they are, those are the ones where you can really push a little bit and kind of get things you wouldn't normally get just by asking or just by demanding some of these things. So that's all it takes. We talked about this with the seller financing, right? Yeah. At this point, every single property I look at, I ask if seller financing is an option, right? And a lot of times it is. So same thing with these other houses now that they're listed, these fixer places or whatever it is that you're buying. I'm asking, you know what? We were looking at this place, we did this inspection, or I saw this title report. I need to reduce this price by $100,000. And you know what? A lot of times they're not going to reduce for whatever you're asking, but you're going to meet somewhere in the middle, right? And even if this deal worked for you at the price you were originally at least now you've got another 20 or 30 or even $10,000 lower. I mean, all that's going to add up when you start buying things, you know, a couple houses at a time. You know, 3 or 4 houses and $20,000 reduction each one is almost $100,000 right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't be afraid just to ask.
Yeah. And it really circles back to the point that we always try to make. You make money on the buy and not on the sell. And so we can't expect appreciation to bail us out. We can't expect the market to bail us out. Although when we first started, you know, if the market bails us out, I mean, we'll certainly take it because there's been moments where we probably would have had a bigger loss if it wasn't for the market. Particularly like the last deal that we talked about, Kent, right?
Yeah.
That would have been a really hard one for us, but the market bailed us out, and I mean, we'll take it if it's there, right?
Yeah.
But we can't rely on that. The numbers have to work when you take that appreciation out of the mix.
Yeah.
So just always stuff that we're talking about.
Yes. To add on to that, so generally, and we all know this formula, you know, it's 70% of ARV minus your rehab costs, right? For a while, you know, even we were pushing that a little bit, 75%, even 80% on
80.
deals we were flipping.
Yeah.
Where maybe we should have wholesaled it out, but we'd buy it, and you know, again, the market carried us. We made money on these kind of deals, but right now it's strict. I'm doing 70% of the ARV minus my rehab costs, and if it doesn't work right there, then I'm not going to buy it. I walked away from one last night actually that I probably would have bought that 6 months ago. I didn't even tell you about the deal, but when I ran the number on it, I'm like, you know what, this is a little too tight, and
Why are you always trying to keep all the good deals?
I would have told you if we bought it, but it was tight. It was a tight margin. It was, you know, a questionable ARV, and again, it was just I wasn't confident that we could just list the house immediately and make money on it. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to buy it at all.
And I mean, this isn't the first time. I mean, more locally, this isn't the first time that we've also seen a market shift. I wouldn't even call it a shift. I would call it a little blip, right? So 2018. So what happened then was Amazon was talking about HQ2. There was a lot of nervousness about maybe Amazon leaving the area completely. Interest rates were actually rising at that time. They weren't that far away from where they are now. And China was deleveraging, and they were getting all their money. They're trying to get all their money out of the States here. So the Chinese investors really evaporated, and that's where we were facing a lot of the competition from like 2015 to probably right up to 2018.
Yeah.
We were faced with a lot of competition from international buyers, specifically from China. And
They stopped buying overnight, basically.
yeah, and in Seattle, if you look at the historical data, 2018 was really a flat line kind of year for the city of Seattle. And a lot of investors, they lost their asses.
Yeah.
They were buying because they were banking on that 20% appreciation, which that's not a normal thing. And I think in the last year, I think we saw like 25% appreciation. Again, that's not a normal thing.
Even more in some places, yeah.
And you just can't count on that. So
Right. So again, it's one thing that's important is we need to leave emotion out of this as much as possible. Home buying, residential real estate especially, is a very emotional process for most of the buyers and sellers, right? And if we can leave the emotion out, we can not be afraid of some confrontation, and not be upset if the deal doesn't work and we can walk. You do all of these things, and you're going to be in a better buying position, and you're going to be buying better deals because of it. So, you know, leave the emotion at the door. Don't be, you know, you can argue that some of the things I'm asking for are shameless, and you know what? I'll admit it. Fine, I negotiate shamelessly, when I'm dealing with listed property, and because it has to benefit me or my buyer. I don't work with retail buyers often, but when I do, it's their interests are what's important. If it helps my buyer, then great. And again, it's not a win-win-win when I'm dealing with listed stuff. It's I want to win and my side has to win. And when I go in with that mentality, then we generally do win. So that's one of the big things that's different right now than was 6 months ago as far as at least buying listed stuff. So, yeah.
I think we're probably getting to the end of all of our talking points here. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you guys want to have us address? We'll just go ahead and open it up here.
Yeah, any questions? You can go ahead and unmute, or you can put them in the chat either way. What we got here?
Jesse, I wanna see you do more behind the scene rehab videos.
I haven't done as much rehab and flip. We've been pretty much keeping everything. So basically, I eliminated the biggest part of my income by doing that. So it's been a little interesting adjusting to that. But yeah, we can do more of that. I mean, we got some coming up, so I guess be on the lookout for that. Dexter, sounds like for the most part it's business as usual, just more conservative numbers. I guess, yeah, in a nutshell, for the most part, yes, that's it. We're being conservative on rehab costs because we always go over. So I'm estimating that a little bit higher.
Longer.
It always takes longer, although we've found some good people lately that have been able to bang out work pretty quick. So, but that's a trial and error thing, and you just have to try people and find out what works and what doesn't. But yes, I just, it's not that I'm being more conservative on the numbers, it's that I'm sticking to what I already want as my, what I want as a standard, right? Whereas before I would flex a little bit. There's things now that I am hard line on. I'm not going to buy if it's tight. Whereas I might try to make it before and make it up and spending less in a rehab. You don't do it. It doesn't work.
And I think right now, realistically, big picture, the market's not going to be changing drastically, right?
Right.
And so, but there's panic in the air right now, and that's what we're leveraging and taking advantage of.
Right.
Especially if a property is listed.
Yeah, and I don't think the panic's going to last very long. Like, even Dave Ramsey, which all of you know how I feel about Dave Ramsey, even he says right now is the best time to buy for the next 5 years because, rates will likely get better by that time, and right now we're going to have more people selling and there's more inventory. Prices aren't going to go down. They're just not going to go up as fast. And he's right. I think he's right about that.
Yeah. Deceleration in the market is not the same as depreciation, and that's what we have to realize.
Right.
Brian's asking, supply chain for cabinets, appliances, is that still an issue for rehabs?
Not for cabinets. We've been able to get cabinets.
Appliances have been easier.
Yeah, there was a time when I can only get the gray ones not that long ago because the white cabinets were stuck out in the containers, but it hasn't been an issue lately, so that's been okay. Let me see. Appliances, depending on what you want. I know some of the higher end stuff has been sitting and taking a while. Some people I talked to, it took a year just to get their appliances, but for what we're working on, we're a lot of entry level stuff, so we don't require super nice appliances, and we can kind of just throw in whatever we can get. So, if it's new and it's stainless, then that's really what's important for us. We had a question up here.
I actually skipped over a question, yeah. So what do you guys recommend with loan programs, companies, with interest rates going where they're going? Actually, we're already seeing hard money, DSCR starting to rebound already.
Little bit. There's a lot of lenders, some of the smaller and the local ones, where they've stopped taking on new loans for the time being. Like we saw that with a couple of the hard money lenders. An issue that I'm concerned about is if you are taking rehab funds, which we generally don't, but just because I don't like going through the extra process while I'm working, but some places have cut off the rehab funds that people need to use. So I want you to use caution when you're relying on rehab funds from these lenders that you'll take draws from, because there might be a chance where they can't give you the draw. So you need to have some kind of backup plan for that. We are doing, so when the rates first started changing, we had a couple houses pending DSCR refinances that kind of just got screwed up and all that, but we did some couple 2-year bridge loan financing on some of those. We did that with a couple different places, so that at least bought us time to let the market settle down a little bit. We can still go conventional if we want, and the only reason we haven't is because honestly we're just lazy to put our paperwork together, and we'd rather just have someone just do it quickly and easily, and we'll pay more for that. But right now, for stuff we're holding, I'm estimating interest rates going to be between 8 and 9% on whatever financing we do. And if our rent cash flows at 8 and 9% interest rates, then that means the deal is probably going to be fine, and that's what we're working with. So if we get something lower than that, which we probably can, and we do, then it's just extra. That's just gravy, right? Icing on the cake. I think the rates are going to level off. So we have at least one more projected 75 basis point, right, going up. But
I think that already happened though.
there's one more scheduled, I think July, or they're talking about it, and I think another one maybe in September. Someone else in here who's closer to that can probably chime in. But either way, when this all started, I felt like rates won't, for conventional financing for people buying their owner occupied houses, I didn't think it would get much higher than 6 to mid 6s. Not because I'm smart about how this all works or understand how the mortgage markets and the secondary markets work, but I just felt like that's about as high as it can get before everyone just gets pissed off. So I figured it's going to be below 7, right? I don't think it'd hit past 7, at least not anytime soon, not quickly. So that's kind of, and it seems like that's kind of about where we're going to end up, like below 7.
And I think even still, like when we're in the 6s, I think historically that's still probably at an average or below average kind of rate. It's just that, again, for so long we've been spoiled. I mean, have you ever seen rates in the 2s before?
Not in on my primary residence, I have 2.5% interest rate. So, but I don't think we've ever been that low.
Right. So, it's a historically low rate.
Yeah.
It's possible that we may never see those rates ever again in our lifetime. And so, we can't expect that to be the norm for the rest of our lives. And so we've got to be able to make some adjustments. And I think for the retail buyer, I don't think that too much is going to change. It's just that I think as an investor, these are some of the things that we're looking at. These are some of the things that we're thinking about. And making sure that, again, we're not falling into that FOMO trap, because that happens a lot, and we talked about that last time.
Right. No, that goes hand in hand with not being emotional about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's.
For cosmetic buy and hold rehabs, are you avoiding anything requiring permits, or is that a non-factor?
I'm not avoiding it. I just bought one that needs permits, and we're already starting on the permit process. At this point, I've done enough permitted projects where it's not anything I'm afraid of. It's just something where I want to factor in several months of additional hold time. And, the permits themselves aren't expensive, right? The biggest, at least some of the entry level stuff we work on, like plans and permits, are generally $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, if that. You could go as high as 10, right? And then you're going to be an additional maybe 3-4 months extra hold time if we're really on it and paying close attention to that project. Now I will say I have a project in West Seattle right now that took like a year to get our permit, and we tried to do the subject to field inspection permit, which for those who aren't familiar with, the city of Seattle will let you get a permit basically over the counter, right? You can walk in and buy it and start working, and then they inspect it as you go under the right circumstances. But we wanted to do a small addition where we're added a staircase because we were moving the stairs. And because of that, they consider that a 2-story addition, and we were not able to do the subject to field inspection permit. Now, in retrospect, I should have made it all work with what was in there, but we already did that. So it took a year to get that permit.
One thing that I'll add to that is, I think as long as the price is right, that's what matters, is that when you're buying that property, if you know that it needs permits, if you know that it's going to take longer, you've got to factor that into the math, right? And if the numbers work, then the numbers work and you'll be fine. And I think that with us being a little bit on the conservative side, I mean, we're probably going to add a little bit more on top of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. You mentioned going back to the basics. Are we still doing mailers? Yes, I am still doing mailers, but I'm not mass mailing like a lot of people do. I still have my targeted list of houses that I have seen myself and that I want, and they get something every month or so. It's not. I used to send several thousand out, on a regular basis, but I'm not doing that. I have only 5, or I think it might be about 600 houses on this list, and I've happened to drive by them at some point in the last couple of years, and they're still getting mail from me. Dexter, you'd said that when you tell non-real estate people that rates are cyclical and will eventually come down. Yeah, everyone always talks about the 80s. You're right. No, it's, again, I think it's just like you said, you've been spoiled for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think what is different about this cycle is the rates have gone up so much so quickly.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, what did I say a couple of years ago? Like when we first figured out we can get these DSCR loans relatively easily, I'm like, we better do as many of these as we can. We don't know how long we're gonna have it, right?
Yeah.
And I kept saying it like every other day to Patrick, and then suddenly the light turns off and we couldn't get him anymore. But even I wasn't happy about it, but I knew that was gonna happen eventually. So
Yeah.
and that was only temporary too. They kind of put a pause on it just for a little bit, but now they're kind of back to business as usual.
Yeah.
Since the rates are a little bit higher.
I think anytime we see like intense volatility, I think that's when people get a little bit skittish.
Right.
I mean, at the beginning of COVID, you had conventional lenders who were just stopping loans right in the middle of it. And we thought that the world was all coming to an end, and then look what happened. And so
Yeah.
I think we've got to look at the numbers. I think when you look at housing as a whole, we're still at a deficit. What a lot of people don't realize is that what we're seeing in the housing market, we're actually still seeing the ripples or the effects of the last mortgage crisis too, where the builders didn't come back. We're at a huge deficit with houses. Millennials are now the biggest home buying group, competing with baby boomers that are living longer.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we've had all this money in the air for a few years now. And so, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting and I think it's an exciting time to be in real estate, but
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anything that we're hitting the panic button over.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that, what's different right now from the last time is the big builders have tons of cash sitting there. They're ready to take advantage of any kind of dip in the market, and they will. We've got a demand for housing that's legitimate, and the supply just really can't keep up with it, regardless of the rate. So
Yeah.
I think you've mentioned this before, where people are paying for this. Buyers are paying for it one way or another. Either the rates are really low and they're paying 100 or 200 grand above, or whatever 20 or 30% is above the listing price in
Yeah.
some cases, or now they're not paying above that asking price, but they're paying for it through a higher rate. So
But you're not competing with 20 people, and you're
Right.
not waiving everything to get the house.
right, right.
So
Either way,
yeah.
their payment's probably about the same.
Yeah.
People buy on a monthly payment. They don't necessarily buy on an interest rate, or they don't necessarily buy on a purchase price. For the majority of people, the average person, they care. I'm going to pay $2,000 a month for this house, and that's what I can afford, whether it's this house or that house. But at least right now, there's a little bit more sanity, and there's a little bit more inventory where people can choose. They're not just having to settle with something. But
Yeah.
that being said, again, it's the supply is still not meeting the demand. So,
Yep. Yep. I think those are all really good questions. I think we'll probably wrap up here. I don't really have anything else to add. I hope that this session was informative, and we really enjoyed all the participation and everyone coming out. If there are any other questions, or do you have any final thoughts?
I guess for a recap, just start lowballing everybody. So make your offers at the price. Take what the price you want, and take another 30 grand off of it. Right? That's the offers I'm making right now, or more in some cases. Don't be afraid of the confrontation. Right? The agents are scared right now, and we can take advantage of that. Dex, you asked, a few weeks ago you mentioned drawing HELOC. I'm not concerned about that. That was kind of just, read
Kinda
the question
set in.
out. Yeah. drawing your HELOCs in case they get
Jesse's
called.
dramatic.
Yeah, I am dramatic. I'm a little bit of a drama queen, and I admit it. But that was happening during that crash last time, where HELOCs were getting closed if you weren't using them. But we're going to have an idea of that happening, at a larger scale before we actually start seeing, our average HELOCs getting shut down. And I don't really think we have anything to worry about that right now, But it's just nice to have the money there and available. So if you don't have the HELOC already, at least open one. That way you can take advantage of some of the deals that might come.
That's a lie.
Let's see. I asked my bank if the HELOC, if they can call the HELOC due during the last crash. They said no. Well, no, they might not have done it, but it was happening. I remember it happening with some other banks. Let me see. Yeah, we try to do these, maybe on a weekly or semi-weekly basis. I guess I think we are due to have a video of some of these rehabs, so I didn't know if people liked them as much as you guys do, so I'll work on trying to put more of that together.
I think we could probably put something together on maybe the Dadu.
Yeah,
I think the Dadu would be good. Bonnie Lake would be good.
Yeah, we just started rehab on a house in Bonnie Lake. It's actually moving pretty quick. We have a Dadu project in Tacoma we can go do a video at that's framed up and getting close to being done. And then we got a couple other Dadu projects as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, great. If there's no other... Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're hoping that this... whatever content we put out and whatever we talk about is useful for you guys. So...
Yeah, and we want to talk about stuff that's important to you guys, right? Important and relevant. So if there's anything else that you're thinking about, post it in the group, and we can always make a video about it. We could always do something even on the fly or kind of as bonus content too. So just make sure to speak up.
Yeah, this group I made it kind of as a joke and a little bit of a spite project, but it's actually turning into something useful. So don't be shy about posting in there and asking questions in there, and hopefully we can grow it a little bit, provide value to everybody. But yeah, if there's no other questions, and again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll do another one another week or so.
Great. Thanks everyone.